pop up on the phone, just put cancel, ignore, and then I'll show you how to pull it up. If something pops up.
We live.
Peace of the family, peace of the family. And the name of this particular session is proof that the government was involved with Nipsey Hussles' murder. Now, I don't know why. First of all, I don't know why is it so important for black people to go out their way and condemn and castigate the likes of whom are from the community just because we question the validity of the narrative of his murder. Okay. That's what I'm saying. We question the validity of the narrative of Nipsey Hussles' murder. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm going to tell you why there's nothing wrong with that. Because we live in America. And not only do we live in America, as a black man living in America, we should always question the validity of any narrative that a black man just was senselessly killed by another black man, when this one black man in particular is of huge significance. And that's the thing that pissed me off, because we really got the nerve to belittle, circumvent, and undermine this black man's significance. So first of all, let's have a heart-to-heart. Nipsey Hussle is the bloodline descendant of Eritrea. Nipsey Hussle was establishing connectivity amongst African Americans, or what I say American Africans of the diaspora, and an East African nation on the Horn of Africa. Okay? He spoke with the president of Eritrea. Okay? You're talking about, amongst many of the populace that's there, Ethiopian descendancy. The cradle of civilization, where the bones of Lucy was found, where we as black people, more especially the black woman, is a progenitor of society. You're talking about the connection with an East African nation that has had hell with America for over 20 years. And he's establishing that connection. And we know one of the main fundamental aspects of oppressing American Africans of the diaspora is to limit their cognizance of their history as it relates to America, and more especially Africa, to stop any connection that the American African of the diaspora here wants to establish with the Africans of the continent. These are facts. And he spoke with the president of Eritrea. But we don't hear that part. Then we also have to consider what? We have to consider the fact in the plaza where he had his marathon store, he was going to tear that down to erect a 6-story residential building to create affordable housing for his people. And then it would be accompanied by a newer model or version of his marathon clothing store where he also solicits his music, where he hired his own people. So you're talking about a black man who's setting up a flagship for entrepreneurship as it relates to wealthy black people. He was no typical gangbanger, and he would have popularized this type of behavior. Now we also have to consider what? He died the day before he spoke with arguably the most corrupt alphabet agency that represents police departments throughout America. I said arguably, because there are some other police departments up for bid, but we'll say LAPD. And we know undoubtedly that there's been contentions amongst lower income communities and the LAPD. We even have historical evidence of police departments murdering people in our communities and putting it off on other gang or rival gangs so they can turn on each other. This actually takes place in history in America. It took place in Chicago, it took place in LA, it took place in New York, and I'm sure it took place in other places, but those are places that's documented. But we like to pretend like these things don't exist, because suddenly Negroes is patriotic. Don't you dare say nothing about my government. Whatever they saying is absolutely true. You Negroes make me sick. But let's keep going. This is also a brother who's putting out what? A documentary on Dr. Sebi, who is going against major pharmaceutical companies. And what did I tell you? Rite Aid is R-I-T-E, which means ritual. The drugstore called Rite Aid, spelled R-I-T-E, should be spelled R-I-G-H-T, but it's spelled R-I-T-E as in ritual. And pharmacy is a Greek word, pharmakeia, which means what? Sorcery, witchcraft. In fact, if you go in your Bible, anywhere you see the word sorcery or witchcraft, it's the word pharmacy. And why is that? Because as an example, one of the main things that they want to say that our children have a problem with is what? ADHD. Okay? ADHD. But guess what? That's not like chicken pox. That's not like the flu. That's not like something that actually definitively someone could conclude you have it. It's totally subjective. There's not a cotton swab, there's not a blood sample that can confirm someone has ADHD. It is totally subjective. And the number one host for ADHD, the number one person or people that's identified as having it is our black children. Something that cannot be defined by the convention of obvious symptoms that correspond with a disease. It's subjective. And so as an example, our children take the drugs in, and it's as though someone performed sorcery on them because they're no longer the same after they get those drugs induced on them. They're no longer the same. It's like our children are not the same after they take the drugs. And any of you whose children was told that they have ADHD, your children didn't come back to you the same after they started taking those drugs, because it's a form of pharmacy. And once they facilitate or execute this sorcery or this witchcraft in the form of using pharmacy on your children, they perform that ritual. That's why when you look at vaccines have formaldehyde in it, dead baby fetuses, and even mercury, the second most poisonous thing on planet Earth. They put the amount of mercury in the vaccines that they wouldn't even dare put inside of a dog. But they'll give you that. They'll give you that. So needless to say, a documentary about Dr. Sebi, you Negroes is turning around saying, come on, people been starting to find out about Dr. Sebi. How come they didn't just off Dr. Sebi when he did? Let me explain something to you. First of all, when Dr. Sebi was doing what he's doing, social media wasn't on the level it's on right now. People are just now starting to really wake up. That's one. Two is, it's a matter of who uses their platform to disseminate to the rest of the masses that such a thing is actually transpiring. You see, if you get the traditional suit and tie brother or sister to tell you about pharmaceutical companies, guess what's going to happen? The people you really need to hear it, the demographic that really this information needs to appeal to, the people that you really want to deliberate to, they may not take heed. But when you got the rebellious hip-hop culture taking heed to this information, the rebellious culture, it's only a matter of time all the other so-called smart people will be damned that the hip-hop culture knows something that they don't know. So you want to teach it to the masses in the hip-hop community because they're the rebellious culture. They're gangster enough to say, we don't give a fuck. We don't deal with those pharmacies. Once we start having that attitude, other people will start waking up. Because it is the educated community that's telling us to go get chemotherapy, where our hair falls out, where our teeth falls out, where it literally burns when the person taking chemo has to urinate. Okay? Where they lose weight. Because they don't prolong life, they prolong death. So it is not a matter of, well, Sebi been out, people been knowing about Sebi. It's a matter of who is the one that is bringing in or ushering the information. He's the type of person that was ushering in the information. He loaned himself enough credibility through all his other advancements towards his culture, towards his community, towards his family. So after a while, the momentum that he was establishing through his philanthropy, which was honorable and credible and believable philanthropy. What does that mean? Other people do good stuff and you be like, man, that's just a tax write-off. He was creating businesses and opportunities that doesn't necessarily make him money, that other investments could have made him money. He did it for the benefit of the people that lived in the community that he lived in. So why am I talking about all this? I'm talking about all this because it stands to reason that this man's life is as significant as we suggest. So we have the right to question the narrative that he was just senselessly murdered by a black man when we're in America because of the advancements that he was making, because of his good deeds. We have every right as black people to be skeptical whenever they present to us somebody doing that much work has just simply been murdered. And to hear black people say, come on, just a gang member, oh, Nipsey is so big. Okay, he was doing a documentary. It's not just a documentary. It's his connection with African communities and nations alongside with America to wake us up, because he would have popularized us connecting back to Africa. He was popularizing us becoming entrepreneurs. He was popularizing us becoming landlords again in our community. He was popularizing putting money back into your community. He was popularizing holistic health and wellness. He was popularizing keeping it real officially. He was popularizing unity in our community. He was popularizing, you know what? Don't just complain about the police. Sit down and build with them until we get reform. So he wasn't just on one front, people. Don't just try to undermine Dr. Sebi. Don't just put Nipsey Hussle's name and put Sebi there and call it a done deal. Like that's the only thing that the brother had going on. It is the combination of all those different things that makes him so significant. And his disposition as a so-called gang leader or gang member makes it even more prominent a fact that chances are somebody had their hands in this. So, first of all, I had to get that off my chest. Because we are not going to keep diminishing this black man's life like he was just a gang member and he was just a subject of yet another case of senseless violence perpetrated by one of his own. We're not going to do that. We're not about to do that at all. We're not about to do that at all, because that's not fair, and it's disrespectful to him, it's disrespectful to his family, and everybody that was part of the movement that he was moving forward. So then you guys say, we got nerve to think that the government has something to do with it. So if you're going to disrespect us, you might as well disrespect Nipsey Hussle. Why? Because in his man's own videos, he said, yo, they may try to kill him for putting out the documentary. We didn't just come up with this idea by ourselves. He said it himself. Think about it. Don't get mad at the people who's referencing something that the guy who got murdered said. He said out his own mouth, yo, they off me because I'm doing this documentary. So why you get mad at people when they say it might have something to do with the documentary when the man said it himself and he wound up being murdered? Left Eye got murdered too when she started to come out with the information. Sebi's death is questionable. So what you think? Like we don't got a history in America? Yo, let me show you something. The government created fake comic books of black people whole black community, and no one's talking about it. First of all, you got slave masters on your money, and you still trust what the fuck they say when one of your leaders get killed? You got slave masters on your money, and just by the merit of that alone, they're telling you that these people are worth something. The people that emasculated us, castrated us, lynched us, tied your women to 2 different horses and set the horses 2 different directions so the baby could come out. They took these same people and they put them on your money and tell you that they have worth every day subconsciously. When you spend it, your slave master still got fucking value. But you don't question the narrative that someone contributed so much good in your community. There may possibly be some false play. You don't question the narrative. Suddenly you Negroes is patriotic when one of your own fucking get killed. He's just a gang member now. When one of your own gets murdered, he's just a gang member. All of a sudden, now you patriotic and you got no recollection of history. You don't know nothing about Bobby Seale. You don't know nothing about Huey Newton. You don't know nothing about Mumia Abu-Jamal, who the FBI was studying before he was 14 years old because he was contributing to the black community as a journalist. Because he was interested in politics and was making noise, and the community was embracing him as a young man. The community embraced Mumia Abu-Jamal as a young man. But you don't feel no way about that. Mumia Abu-Jamal was embraced as a young man, and the feds opened up a case about him. Y'all don't know nothing about COINTELPRO, do you? You don't know nothing about the Freedom of Information Act, do you? Where you can see thousands of pages on the Moorish community, the Moorish Science Temple. You see over 1,000 pages on Tupac. Why are they investigating these people for so many years? You guys know there's a hip-hop police. And you see the BS that goes on with the hip-hop police, and you still say nothing. You still say nothing. I just don't get it. So when I say proof that the government is involved, like I was just saying for my Instagram post, I say, yo, in sentential calculus, if P implies Q and Q implies P, hold on real quick. I was saying, like in sentential calculus, if P implies Q and Q implies P and P implies R, then R implies Q. That's called the law of implication. It can be the law of double implication reversal depending on how you take it. So for instance, if the Knicks beat the Bulls and the Bulls beat the Lakers, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Knicks can beat the Lakers since the Bulls beat the Lakers and the Knicks beat the Bulls. You can rewind it to make it make sense. Because there's different variables there. There's if somebody's injured, there's different chemistry, how people are feeling that day, if somebody's shots is off. And so that's the law of implication. But if a dog is a mammal and all mammals are warm-blooded, then it stands to reason that all dogs are warm-blooded. That's the law of double implication reversal, because no matter how you flip it, it's always going to be correct. So when I say the government is involved with Nipsey Hussle's murder, let's do the math. Let's build, God. Let's really build. Let's do the math. And tell me this ain't proof that the government has something to do with it in some shape, form, or fashion. You tell me. I say, yo, the government got something to do with it. Mind you, I don't put out a video. I don't put out information where I got to turn around and have to be corrected. If I have to be corrected, I'll stand corrected. But oftentimes when I put information out, it's because I already know something. That's how I set a lot of people up when I do my debates. I ain't doing a debate unless I already know something. So I said, what? What did I title it on my Instagram? I said, I believe that the government, I believe that black people worked with the government to murder Nipsey Hussle. Or at least a black person. This is what I wrote. Now let's do this. Let's do this. We still good? Mm-hmm. So watch this now. Let's really put this thing together. And let's really make this thing make sense. I said the government has something to do with killing Nipsey Hussle. You say, oh no, not our government. All of a sudden you Negroes are patriotic and got no recollection of the history of black people here in America. Fine. Now watch this. I just told you P implies Q and Q implies P and P implies R, then R must also imply P. R must also imply Q. These things all got to work. This is the law of double implication reversal. And I just gave you two examples of implication and double implication reversal. If the guy that killed Nipsey is a snitch, because y'all say he's a snitch. Everyone says he's a snitch. You cannot snitch. By being a snitch, we mean you work in collusion or in cooperation with the government in order that they may make favorable concessions to you so you can have your freedom. So you can have your freedom. A snitch is someone that works for the government. Right or wrong, people? Press 9 if you're not ignorant. Press 9 if you're not these shameful Negroes who just want to make sure no one says nothing about the government completely. See, I question the people that's going out there. I've never seen black people go this hard for an institution or agency that has a history of abusing them and lying to them. And I gave you several examples to preface my statement before this video came on. Press 9 if you understand that a snitch is one that has to work with the government in order for them to make it back out amongst the populace. Now, a sex offender has to register so people in the community that is amongst that sex offender can be made aware that there's a threat amongst their community. So now you may say, man, we're not going to let him get residency over here. We're not going to let him get a job. We're going to make it hard for him to live over here. You're going to pretty much have to live somewhere where people don't mind. Because we don't want that type of stuff in our community. But when a person snitches, do they have to register as a snitch? When a person snitches, do we get any information to realize, what if the snitch not only suffers from mental health, they said this guy suffers from mental health. What if the snitch not only suffers from mental health, but was also guilty of murder, but was allowed to be free despite his murders, despite his mental health condition, because he did the bidding of the government? But I'm gonna go back to P implies Q, Q implies P, P implies R, so therefore R must imply Q. The government has something to do with murdering Nipsey Hussle. Let's put it to task. A snitch murdered Nipsey Hussle. A snitch works for the government. Therefore, the government, or someone who works for the government, killed Nipsey Hussle. Does it make sense? If the snitch killed Nipsey Hussle, and in order to snitch, you have to work with the government, then someone that works for the government killed Nipsey Hussle. Now what we have to do is two things. Either the murder was advertent or inadvertent. But either way, we still have to hold the government accountable, just like we have to hold black people accountable. Yes, we do have to hold black people accountable, but we're not going to get our boots off the neck of the government. We're not going to let them just sell us a story until we question every goddamn thing and put the questions through the machine and see what the output is. How dare y'all tell people we don't have the right to fucking question the narrative? Like we ain't been lied to about our leaders and find out 10, 20, 30 years later where the children find out about the lies, but the adults was lied to during that generation. Think about it. All the shit we learned about Marcus Garvey. Don't you know the first FBI agent was assigned to Marcus Garvey? And he was part of the community taking intel? And they made Marcus Garvey out to be a fucking fraud amongst his own people. His own people turned on him so much, he attempted to commit suicide because of this shit. Not once, but twice. But now today we say, yo, you know, the government was out there trying to stop Marcus Garvey. But guess what those Negroes did during the time of it? They believed everything the government told them. They believed that he was fraudulent in his practices. They believed that he wasn't paying the people out that he was supposed to pay. And with the Nation of Islam, they sabotaged Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's import and export conditions that he had for fish. They was freezing the fish out purposely so that it will fall apart by the time he got it, so they couldn't sell the fish after they had spent their fucking money for the fish. And they sabotaged the Nation of Islam because Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad set up steakhouses and schools and barbershops and had his own independent publication and import and export going on, especially with fish. And they sabotaged his fish business. And everybody shitted on the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad like he was a bad businessman. Like he had bad business practices. And all the fucking while he was set up. And now we can read this information by way of the Freedom of Information Act. But during that time, black people turned on him. During that time, black people turned on him. And it's 2019. And y'all still can be told a story from the mouth of the wicked and believe anything they say? And you guys will fight amongst each other and say, oh no, you see, it's like y'all glorifying, oh no, it's just black on black crime. It's like you happy to say this stupid shit with no question. You mad at people for asking questions? You're calling other black people all sorts of names for asking questions about the situation? Oh, conspiracy theory. Bitch, ain't no fucking conspiracy theory. A snitch is someone that works for the government, and therefore he killed Nipsey, so someone that works for the government killed Nipsey Hussle. So it's one of two things we gotta ask. Was he planted in a community like we've seen historically to eventually kill this brother? One. Or two, were they irresponsible by allowing this snitch to be back in the populace amongst the community, knowing that he's high risk amongst members of his own community because of his mental health issues and because of his character per the things he was incarcerated for and released for, in light of the fact that they made concessions onto him for snitching. See, nobody wants to hold them accountable though. But if he's a goddamn snitch, he was put back in the populace despite him being a threat to his community. How about that? How about that? If he's a snitch, as they say he is, he was put back into the populace amongst his own where he's a threat to his own, and they ain't give a damn about putting him back in our community. So how can we not hold the government accountable? Press 9 if it's making sense. Press 9 if it makes sense. Press 9 if it makes sense. So I know I ain't tripping. Damn. And you know what's funny? You guys say that you black conscious. You guys say that you black nationalists. Come on, man. Phone dying? Don't worry about it. Wait. And 5,700 people. 9. That's right. Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. We'll go somewhere that's brighter. And I'm just about done. I'm just saying it's a goddamn shame that you gotta fucking tussle and wrestle with your own people. You gotta wrestle with your own people, common sense. Now what you gonna say? Because you can't shake it. A snitch works for the government. Somebody who worked for the government killed Nipsey. Fuck you gonna say now? You gonna argue with me about that? What you need to do is make sure snitches have to have some kind of fucking profile, or there needs to be a ferreting process for when you can't allow a snitch to be back amongst his populaces where he's a threat to his own people. Come on, man. Sex offenders have to register. Snitches don't. So we don't know who the fuck they got in our community and under what conditions. They let murderers back on the streets in our community just because they gave up information about other people. Here, you can get back out there. And guess where they put them? Where they are the biggest threat amongst the same people they perpetrate the same heinous acts to, or amongst, or against, and nobody knows. So nobody holds them accountable for putting them back on the streets. I'm saying no matter what shape, form, or fashion, we still gotta hold them accountable. What's the problem with that? I ain't into no damn conspiracy theory. What they've done to us in America is not a conspiracy theory. They experimented on us via the Tuskegee experiment. They injected syphilis into us just to see how we gonna respond to it. That's the fucking history of this country.